Hi, this is Brian Brady and former Congressman David Bonior on the Civic Pulse. We're excited to be with you today, and we have a special show with a guest from who's door knocking in Muskegon, Michigan. My old friend Katy Hogan, a former teacher, longtime Politico, and she used to own the iconic Heartland Cafe, home of radical progressivism on the north side of Chicago. Welcome, Katy. How you doing?
I'm good. You forgot to say also the home of good food, but we'll let that fly.
It was
Yeah,
very
we're
good.
we're on our second day of canvassing here in Muskegon, and part of Operation Swing State is to go to both Wisconsin and Michigan, uh, being our neighbor swing states, and it's been amazing. We have a great group.
Good.
Yeah.
What's the plan today for you all to hit the doors in Muskegon? What's the goal?
Well, people are getting coffee and breakfast over here at the hotel, and then we're going over to the campaign office, which is just 5 minutes away, getting our turf. Actually, me and my two cohorts already have our turf, and hitting the doors. There are a lot of doors to hit here because they don't have as many canvassers as we do, which is part of why Jan Schakowsky and cohorts put together Operation Swing State, which has actually done amazing work. Over 110,000 doors in both states since July.
Oh,
How about that?
that's great. That's fabulous.
Yeah, it is fabulous, and it's great to for fellow Americans to talk to one another across divisions, because there has been no rudeness or door slamming. A couple of fuck you. Oh, sorry, you can't say that.
That's okay. We're on YouTube. We can say it.
Okay. Couple of those for just really only two out of the entire time. So
Wow.
it's a moment where we get to say, well, it doesn't matter to us that you disagree. We're still neighbors, fellow Americans. We have work to do. When this campaign's over, we still have all the problems we have to address. So hopefully we can address them together. But I'll tell you what was eye-opening. As I went to my room last night and had TV on for about half hour, it's all I could stand. Um, I got to see the commercials that these people see
Yeah.
every day,
Yeah.
and the swing state commercials are just horrific,
Yeah, they're terrible.
really horrific. So it's no wonder we have to fight for their votes, because they're being fed incredible crap.
Whoppers. Yeah.
Big old whoppers, big old whoppers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easier to pull down. So Operation Swing State takes a lot of Illinoisans, right? From
Yeah.
I know Indivisible's doing this. I've done some door knocking in Michigan through Indivisible and in Wisconsin, and I was out in Kenosha yesterday, partly motivated by you, Katy, knocking some doors.
Yeah. Indivisible. There's like now 70 different individual groups that are part of Operation Swing State, including this, that, and the other Democratic Party from all over the city and suburbs. And Indivisible is a huge partner. They've been doing this for years, and they do it well. And they've been wonderful partners. And yeah, if folks can't go on a canvas I've developed out of Rogers Park, I absolutely lead them to the list of Indivisible ones. So
yeah, I'm impressed with how good the training is now, and they even brought in Second City improvisers that teach you active listening and how to really, empathize with the door and not throw your own opinions in too quickly and all of that.
right.
Um,
Yeah, it's a skill. It's a lot of soft skills, canvassing, and much like restaurateuring.
Yes, it is. David owns a restaurant as well, so
Oh no, really?
Yeah, I've had a couple of restaurants, and we've got one in DC now, 10 years. It's called Agua. Go one. Good food.
good
Our,
food
our,
and good topic.
our tagline was "Good wholesome food for the mind and body."
Yeah.
So and where's the other one, David?
Well, it was. We had it for 5 years, my family and I, and we got rid of it. But it was Barracks Row, right across from the Marine Corps Barracks in DC.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
good for you.
Well, on the doors, I'm going to jump to the doors because there's a political show, and I want to. We'll do the restaurant show later, but
Dang.
I want to hear a little bit about. I'll tell you some of my door stories from yesterday, but I want to hear a couple of your more interesting door stories, Katie. I know we only got you for 5 more minutes.
Right.
What are a couple of the personalities that you've seen at the door and that were interesting?
Well, yesterday I talked to a couple who are religious, and that was their self-introduction when I found them in their front yard with their training their new puppy. So we bonded over the puppy training, and then I told them what I was there for, and they were fine. And they said, well, we are of faith. So I could say, me too. Um, and I, basically left them with after a small conversation about a couple of issues, just left them with, well, I think we need people of faith to do some of the healing required after the last number of years of trauma that we've all faced with one another. And so I hope you're in for the long haul and for more than just puppy training or something like that. They were sweet. In Racine, I remember a really hot day that we were canvassing in August, and there was no shade in the neighborhood, none at all, no grown trees. And so we were like going from little saplings to enter our results in the handheld minivan. I get to one house, and this is very common, and you may have run into it. We have divided households. Okay, the women are going to vote for Kamala in these households, the men for the other guy. And I came to a house, I had 2 women's names, the mom and the daughter. They weren't home. So he said, you're stuck with me and I'm not on your side. And so we talked for a little bit about why he's not on our side and, communicating a variety of things and me practicing I hear you. And that's sometimes the way I feel, but in the big picture, yada, yada. At some point, I finally said, and what is with the lack of shade in your neighborhood? To which he did what you just did. He chuckled, and we both chuckled. And that's kind of what I'm after with these guys, just a little connection. Yeah. And he pointed out, he said, I planted those 2 trees out there in the parkway, but it's illegal here. And I said, it's illegal in my town too. And but I like your style. And I fist bumped him, and that was our exchange. So, that's what's possible when you're talking to people on their front porch.
Right. Katie, when I ran for Congress, I passed out little pine seedlings. We had a serious tree destruction of an ice storm. Passed out 70,000 little pine seedlings, about 18 inches long.
Brilliant.
Our whole campaign, door to door, and we won. And the reason we won is because of the trees. So I did it every spring and every fall for the next 26 years. And we gave out 1 million trees, and trees just open up everything to everybody.
Oh, that gives me chills. That's so wonderful, David.
Oh, it's a great.
Yeah.
I'm glad you used that line with him.
Yeah. Right. I mean, and I also get told, and I'm sure, Brian, you've run into this, I get told incredible things by the other guy's supporters, to which I get to say, no one in America, look me in the eyes, would ever pass a law that said it's okay to kill a born baby. Because I had that put in front of me, and I said, look at me, seriously, because you can't repeat this ever again. And then after I told her that, and we had been talking for 5 minutes, so we were old buddies. And then I said to her, if I were you, I'd wonder who thought I would be gullible enough to believe such a horrific story. To which she sort of thought. And so, yeah, it gives you these opportunities when we live in our blue bubble up there and down there in Chicago, over there. We don't have these conversations. So it's a great opportunity to try and weave the pattern of our country back together again a little bit.
I'm impressed with your courage, Katie, to dialogue with the other side. I tend to just say, have a good day. And
that's sometimes the better part of valor there, Brian.
I had a couple doors I'll tell you about. And see, one was a Mexican family. I knocked on the door. It took a while for the pregnant mom to come to the door, and she said, "Yeah, I'm the only voter here." She goes, I said, which side are you voting for? She goes, "I'm an immigrant. What do you think?" she goes, "I work in Milwaukee." She goes, "And he came and trash talked Milwaukee." She goes, "He lost a lot of votes when he was talking, bad about Milwaukee." So thank God Trump is a little dumb and he comes and trash talks Detroit and Milwaukee in their hometowns. People won't like that much.
Brilliant guy. Yeah.
Another door was an LGBTQ woman. Had about 27 earrings and nose rings and mouth rings, and she's just like, "He wants to kill all of us."
Right.
So it's tragic and sad, though. Just some of these doors were just like, one side wants to just get rid of us and kill us, and the others, so who am I voting for? It was existential for some of these doors.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a pretty weird time.
Yeah.
It's of all the times, and I've been at this a long time, like 50 years at this point since I first canvassed, more than 50. This is unique. Every campaign is unique, but this is particularly strange. Very strange.
Well, before you hop off, I know you got to go.
Mhm.
Harold Washington was one of your heroes you helped elect way back in the 80s. And
Yep.
Give us a little inspiration from Harold about what would Harold say if he was alive today about this election? What would be his call, you think?
I got a little vignette. When I was working for his reelection in '87, I'd bring him around to various neighborhoods because he was the best flipping candidate I ever worked for. And his presence was enough. We're walking down Clark Street in Lincoln Park. He had just had what ticked him off about a Democratic Party endorsement session. Like, he was the sitting mayor. Why should he have to come there? But he was good. He came. And we're walking down the street, and there's a woman coming at me, all dressed up to go to work, trench coat, briefcase. And I'm passing out flyers to people as they come up, and I'm saying, "Your mayor's here in your neighborhood to talk to you today, meet you." And a bunch of people were very excited about it. I go to hand her one, and she swerves away very pointedly, like, "I don't want any of that." And the mayor's, 100 feet behind me. So I had to look to see what would happen. And I turned around, and he's got his eye on it. He's totally aware. And as she approaches him, she goes like out into the grass to avoid him. He goes toward her with his hand extended, looks at her and says, "I knew you'd be here." The man was so cool. He was so cool. I mean, he went into the belly of the beast with a smile and a twinkle in his eye, and he took care of the entire city. And I wish we had him back, because we don't have that kind of caring for the whole city right now.
Yeah, he was a legendary figure. We lost a lot with Harold. Well, I know more important than talking on a pod is going to door knock. So we're just glad we got 15 minutes with you, Katy, and thanks for joining us.
Nice to see you.
Very nice to see you, Daniel. I'll have to talk to you about the restaurant biz and politics together one time.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a great combo, right?
It is a good
Food
combo.
and people. It's a good deal. Yeah.
All right, you guys take care. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Goodbye.
She's a professional door knocker there. She might have missed your first name there at the end, but she's pretty good at the door knocking.
All right. Never mind. Stories.
Exactly. No, we got about 15 more minutes, David. I wanted to interview you about the state of the race 9 months out.
Yeah.
The 9 days out, I mean, but we've already had 40 million people vote, which is about 25% of the electorate. So we're 9 days out, but we're really a quarter of the way in is probably a better way to say it, right?
Yes.
And some of the news from the past couple days, right, is you see the polls, kind of different polls saying different things. ABC came out with the most optimistic poll today, having Harris up 51-47, but then Emerson came out with a dead even poll. Of late, I've been seeing just it looks like a back to basics, back to the base messaging strategy by the vice president to get her women gender gap advantage and stretch it, right? Michelle Obama out, Beyonce out, reproductive rights front and center. And if you're looking at early votes, I see there's a 10% gap between women and male voters in the early vote, with 10% more women early voting, which is a good sign for Harris. But then there's also the folks who say, hey, you got to stop the bleeding with the men, and you got to go on Rogan's show like Trump did, et cetera. You've run some national campaigns and a ton of local campaigns. What would you advise Harris to do right now? Go to her base or try to stem the bleeding from where she's losing some votes?
Well, you want to do both, of course. I mean, you want to massage what's working for you, and you want to get your base vote out there. And if it's women, and it is, as you noted in your statistics, then you got to make sure that that's priority. And then, of course, if you have the time, and you can continue to work on including those who have not been part of your coalition. So, but I would be really careful about going on Rogan's show. I'm not careful in the sense of being afraid to go on Rogan's show. I mean, I think, is it worth the time? I mean, we're down to a time question right now, and I would try to get as many people who agree with you to the polls as possible. That would be number one priority. Convincing people like Katy is doing and her friends that we just talked to, going door to door, that's got to continue. And then they're going to meet people, some of the bros that aren't necessarily are with Trump or are thinking of voting with Trump. You'll encounter them along the way, and they can be convinced through that process. But using her time wisely is really key in the last. It's always key throughout the whole campaign, but especially when you get to the end. It's the ninth inning, right?
It's the ninth inning, and that's a good point. Yeah, I was wondering, there's not too many persuadables probably in that Rogan podcast, right? So you wonder if Trump going there makes sense because he's getting out his base, but does it make a lot of sense for? He's got 13 million listeners though, and then you get the build on media, so there's a media play there, right?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to think about it and figure it out.
What do you think of her going to Houston there? She's most likely not going to win Texas, and doing that big event for 30,000 people in Houston. Was that a good strategy?
I think so, because it got covered so well. And to your last point, you get the multiple effects on the news and other outlets that it could be in your backyard, for that matter, through that process. So yeah, I think it was a good thing to do. It's a stopover, and of course you had a stadium full of, was it 30,000, 35,000 people in there. It was good crowd.
And you got to see George Popovich pop off last night. I love this.
I love Pop. Was he? I would have watched it just to have seen him. I love him.
He went out last night, I think, after the game, and just talked about what a little man Donald Trump is. Just attacking his manhood for just what a small-minded human he is. Do you think those celebrity type sound offs do much, or are they just feel good for the base?
I think a little. Well, I'm a 50-50 guy, so I think they're a little of each, but they really are. I mean, they are a turnoff to some people. The people, kind of wanted to this is my decision. This is one of the most important decisions I could be making, and leave the entertainment world out of it, or the sports world out of it. Let me make it, huh?
Yeah.
And so there's that, and then there's the other people who are drawn to it and who admire some of these celebrities and stars. Like me, I admire Popovich, right? He's the coach, by the former great coach of the San Antonio Spurs. And so, is he still the coach there?
He's still the coach. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's an amazing guy.
Yeah.
And so, whatever works here, we're in an election, right? And we're down at the very end. You got to go with, and it takes a bit of courage to do the right thing. And I was looking at some numbers, Brian, from a Pew poll in the 2020, right at the end of his term, Trump's first term. And they were pretty amazing numbers. I have them right in front of me. Let me just bring them up if I can here. The question was basically, let's see if I can get it. I'm not good at this moving things around. They wanted to know the American people. They asked the American people about whether Trump was self-centered. 80% said he was self-centered. Prejudiced, 59% said he was prejudiced. Honesty, 36% said he was honest.
Wow.
Morally upstanding, 32%.
Wow.
And, those are character issues. And what matches or goes along with character, good character, positive character, those numbers, is courage. You've got to be able to stand up for something, even though it might hurt you in a very difficult time. He's not been willing to do that. He has no, moral courage. And I think that's a huge, huge problem. And I think a lot of people see that in him. And even though they might like occasionally what he says or his politics, whether it's on the question of abortion or whatever, he lacks moral courage, and the people see that, and they don't care for his personality.
Yeah,
clearly. So at the end, I think we're going to be okay, and I think she's run a very strong, smart race.
Yeah, it reminds me. I door knocked with Katy Hogan in Milwaukee a couple months ago. She likes to engage the Trumpers more than I do. But at one door, she said to this guy who was leaning Trump but didn't like him.
Yeah,
and her line was, "You're too good for this guy. You shouldn't stand with him." I like that.
Yeah,
that's not a bad line at the end. What would you do with? There's a story today that the Joe Biden is going out to Pittsburgh to do a little campaigning, but that the Kamala folks who really run her side of didn't really know about it. So there's this delicate dance happening between the president and the vice president right now, and you've been in delicate political situations. How you think they're handling it okay, or what would you?
I didn't hear that, so I'm not familiar with that. I mean, he had a big mistake. Let's put it that way. Let's call it that. The other day when he was referring to Trump on something, I can't even remember what it was right now. But I know when I heard it, I cringed.
Yeah, I forget. It's amazing how the news cycle is so fast. That was a big news story for about 36 minutes, and then the next thing came along, right?
The fact that we can't remember it is probably a good sign. But
yeah,
people are worried that something like that could upset the focus.
Oh, I remember he should be in jail, right? Something like that. He should.
Yeah, it was with respect to it was lock him up or lock her up.
Yeah,
that was that controversy again. We don't really need to go there.
Yeah, that's not. We need to beat him at the ballot box.
Well, speaking of which, I'm going to go here. The New York Times today on the front page had all the things that Trump would do if he's elected, and one of them is to lock up people who disagree with him, who he defines as disagreeing with him.
That's the last topic I want to dive in with you here, and the one that's keeping, I think, a lot of us up in the middle of the night and wondering what the heck happened to our country. If you're a Black American, you've probably been more awakened to some of the nefarious aspects of American politics for longer. But for my sheltered white self, it's like, I didn't know we could become a fascist country. I didn't think that was in on the bingo card at all. Impossible. What is, David, what, win or lose, I think where I've made my peace is we are in a fight. We are in a fight to restore democracy. The fact that we're 50%, we have almost 50% of voters choosing a guy who is espousing fascism. And, give us your insights. You've 60 years in politics. There's many roots to this problem. If you're building a long-term plan to fight this, really toxin in our politics, where would you got $1 billion to invest? Where would you tilt the fight over the next few years?
Well, it's the long term is what you've been doing your life, and what I tried to help you with a little bit over my life post Congress, and that is on civic education.
Mm-hmm.
Our kids are not getting enough of it, understanding it. I mean, the MICVA Challenge, which is a great program that you ran for 20 years, democracy is a verb. That was your motto.
Yeah.
That means getting out and doing it, not just even learning it. But they're not even learning it in school anymore. A small percentage of our kids understand how and learn how the government works and why it works. And we have to invest more money. The STEM thing has been great. All of those programs, that's fine. I'm not against that. I'm for that. But we need to put comparable dollars into preserving the value which we say we care so much about, and that is our democracy. So let's get back to that, okay? Because that's really key. Demonizing teachers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and,
they have the most responsible. I shouldn't say responsible. They have the most difficult job in terms of responsibilities in this country, and that's educating our young people. So let's make sure that they're educated, number one. And the other thing I would say, this fear of the other, this replacement idea that, the white folks are going out and the people of color are coming in, and the unknown. It's a real issue. And we've got to figure out ways, like Katy was talking about just a second ago, of connecting people together. And it may be that kind of thing, knocking on doors or visiting with people in a setting that isn't comfortable for you. So you're there and you're listening and you're learning. You're going to hit something or other during the evening that's going to connect you with them. And that connection is really kind of key and important in a democracy to keep it moving and going and working. Mm-hmm. So we need to stop isolating and bubbling ourselves, living in our bubbles and mixing. And there are places that we can do that in the urban areas and certainly in the rural areas. So I think those are key pieces to try and address this.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let me throw out two more quick thoughts here too. As I was door knocking with my friend Stephanie Summers, who really took it back to white poverty, and that that the Democratic Party's failure the last 30 years to fight economic globalization that left half of Americans behind, right? And those folks have pivoted to the Republican Party. So she doesn't think we can really stabilize our democracy till the Democratic Party starts to recognize it's the original sin of NAFTA and undercutting worker rights and worker salaries as a piece. And then the other thing I think is the Rush Limbaugh. I credit him, don't credit, but I think the Democrats, although I believe in civic education profoundly, I think the biggest civic educator in the country right now is happening online, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Reddit, on all these alternative mediums that many folks my age and above don't really realize that's where people are getting most of their information. But the Republicans have been playing that game far better. I call it the everywhere, all at once, all the time propaganda strategy. And I don't think we've been nimble or agile enough in those spaces to fight there. And so all these young men who are gravitating towards Trump have been getting their information from Ben Shapiro, from Jordan Peterson. And we're slow to the game there. So I don't know. I think fascism always needs came around in the 30s, partly because of the rise of radio
Right.
and mass media. And I think we're seeing fascism rise partly because of the power of online media. And I don't think we've come up with a real counterweight to it yet.
Those are really good points. And I would put myself in the category of not knowing the technology and the medium well enough to be able to counteract those who are on the other side on these issues. So we need to do a better job of that. Definitely need to do a better job of that. I was reading Anne Applebaum, who's a great writer and wrote for the Post and is now writes for the Atlantic. And she was doing a piece on language.
Mm-hmm.
She's really an expert on Russia and Ukraine and Eastern Europe. That she's Poland. She knows that subject as well as anybody I think in the country, including top academics at institutions. And she was talking about the language in which Trump has been using and his people have been using and relating it right back to what Hitler and Mussolini did, basically. The same kind of language, vermin, all kinds of things that diminish people and it diminishes your democracy too. And so we've got a lot of fronts we got to work on here to get their country back together, and we've got to work at it, because if we don't work at it, if we give up on it, we're going to surrender to a very dangerous group of folks.
Yeah, I agree. It's not an easy challenge to face, but I'll celebrate for a day when Kamala wins.
Yeah.
But I think we only give ourselves a day to celebrate, and then we got to start thinking long term on this.
Right.
Well, David, we might have one of your friends and pollsters on next week, but we'll take a deeper dive in Pennsylvania, the key state in the election, maybe, and on next Sunday. Does that sound good?
Sounds wonderful. It should be a really interesting week.
It will be. Have a great Sunday. Take care.
Bye-bye, everybody.